Welcome to Liberate Your People Pleaser. I am your host, Brenda Florida, certified life coach, and you might be a people pleaser if you sacrifice your needs or your wants or your feelings to benefit someone else, or you keep silent when something bothers you or upsets you, or you're super critical and feel like you're probably your own worst enemy. Well, here's what I've got in store for you for this podcast. First of all, there's nothing wrong with you and you don't need fixing. What we need to do is leverage the superpowers of being a people pleaser, because there are definite superpowers. You are super intuitive, I am sure. You have great powers of empathy, the ability to read a situation and know what's going on with people and those around you. So what we're going to do in each episode is talk about ways to disempower the parts of it that are diminishing and don't serve us anymore, and level up or empower all those superpowers. So join me in the next episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to dive into something I call the Freedom Unleashed process. So the reason why I created this process is because I am a very practical person in many regards. One of them is I like inspiration, right? Being inspired by something is great. Hearing a motivational, talk, or watching a video that, pumps you up and gets you excited, or even that moment, maybe you're working with a coach or you're reading a book, or again, maybe watching a video or something, hopefully listening to my podcast. When you have that really great aha moment, and suddenly there's just an opening and an awareness of something, an old pattern, something that's not serving you, that you really get, But here's the deal. The truth is that inspiration or that aha alone won't create a change in our behavior. It won't create a change in our thinking. It won't create a change in how we react in our lives. So for true sustainable transformation, which is what I want, right? I don't want to have to keep doing something over and over and over. I want sustainable transformation. And to have sustainable transformation, it has to go deeper than the inspiring moment. It has to go deeper than the aha moment. I coach so many people who are very self-aware, which is lovely, but they'll come to me saying, like, I know what I'm doing. I know how I'm sabotaging myself. I know how the pattern I'm repeating, I know these things, but I can't seem to stop doing them. And so that's really my passion as a coach, is to create the processes, because everybody's a little bit different, and give the tools that people can use to actually change the way they react and behave, because that's where the freedom is, right? If I just keep doing the same thing over again, who cares that, somewhere I have a awareness that that's not really serving me, but I can't stop doing it. So it's sort of like, I really think of all the things that we carry around with us that don't serve us as habits, because that's all they are. There's something we picked up generally in childhood from some kind of trauma or upsetting situation, of some kind, that created then this coping mechanism, right? For those of us who are people pleasers, that coping mechanism always has something to do with putting other people first, or putting even a cause, sometimes it can be not a person, first, as a priority over everything in your life that you want or you need or you feel. So if you're going to say something that's going to upset me, you shouldn't say it, because your need to speak your truth is not as important as my need to not be upset, that sort of thing. So as people pleasers, we get caught in this in all kinds of ways that are sometimes big, like the one I just described, where we actually put our truth on the back burner or silence ourselves. The patriarchy has supported that pattern of behavior, that habit, in a huge way culturally. Or even something smaller where we just kind of don't order what we want at the restaurant because whatever, we think it's going to be too much trouble, or, we don't want to bother somebody at the table, like maybe with what you like to eat. Like I love to eat meat, and maybe I'm having dinner with vegetarians, and so I project onto them that they won't like it. They'll be upset if I order a steak, so I just don't do it. So this can be from something very super simple and seemingly meaningless or harmless, and something much bigger. So in my coaching programs, and even, in my one-on-one work with people, and also in this podcast, I'm also really seeking to give everyone tangible tools and processes that they can work with these things on, so that you can actually not just be aware of your people-pleasing tendencies and how the ones that aren't serving you, but to actually change the way you're responding and reacting so that you can be liberated from them. Hence the name of the program, Liberate Your People Pleaser, right? It's not just enough to know, we want to be liberated and actually do things differently. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of this process, and then I'm also super excited to share with you that right now, at least for those of you who are watching this in real time, I am offering a workshop. Now, if you're watching a recording of this, go to my website, brendaflorida.com, because there will probably be a future offering of the workshop that you can register for as well, because this is something I intend to offer on a regular basis. But we're getting ready to do the first one on September 2nd. And so I wanted to talk about a process I've created that I'm unveiling or teaching for the first time really in this workshop, which I call the Freedom Unleashed process. So it's a 4-step process, and I'm just going to hit what those 4 are right now and why they're so powerful. And then in the workshop, I'm going to teach how we implement them in our lives. So the first thing we want to do is uncover. Okay, we want to uncover both what we want in life, what our desires are, what we long for. I love the word yearning. What are you yearning for? What do you want in your life? If you only had the superpowers that you have of being a people pleaser in place, and you didn't have these habits that were diminishing to you, you weren't worried about what other people think, you weren't worried about, the rules, self-imposed and other imposed rules or limitations you have on your life, what would you really want? How would you be living? What would you be pursuing, maybe in a career or in a hobby or some kind of calling that you have in life? Or where would you want to live? Or, just what would you want your life to look like without all the, oh, but that's not practical, or who do you think you are? All those negative, limiting thoughts that will get triggered when you start thinking about what you want. So this process can seem simple. Oh, what do I want? Let's make a list. But it's actually a little more complicated than that, because when we really get serious about what we want, then our mind will automatically get triggered into those old limiting beliefs. So, but nonetheless, that's what the other 3 steps will work on, okay? But nonetheless, we've got to start with what we want. We also have to uncover what the blocks are that get in our way. So whatever they are, who do you think you are? You're not good enough. Other people and what they need are more important. I can't do that until my children are grown. I can't do that because I'm too old now. I can't do it because I'm too young and I need more life experience. Like whatever these blocks are that keep us from pursuing what's possible for us, we've got to uncover them, okay? So that we know what we're dealing with. All right, the next step is unravel. So this is where we really go after those things that are in our way. And I like the word unravel because it lacks judgment. I think it is absolutely pointless, even when we know we have something in our life that is not serving us or even destructive to us, to be self-critical and self-judgmental about it will not help you actually transform it. Okay. So there's a lot of kind of wisdom of crowds sort of concept that would indicate that you just need to buckle down and be more self-disciplined and, just stop it. The opposite of just do it, just stop it. A lot of people will have that approach when it comes to uh, an addiction to alcohol or drugs or different kinds of, maybe food or sugar or whatever. And they're just like, oh, I'm just gonna, buckle down and discipline myself into not doing that anymore, no more sugar. And then, I sit down in front of you with a piece of chocolate cake and it's like, let's start no sugar tomorrow, So it is always the most sustainable when we can make change from a place of non-judgment. This is where I really like to activate this loving inner authority that I've talked about from time to time. This is like my loving inner parent, if you want to call it that, inner mother, inner father. It's this loving inner wisdom that I have and that you have that will help us change a behavior that's not serving us through love, not through browbeating, not through criticism, not through judgment, but through love. Because if what my body really needs is less sugar, like if that's the loving choice for me, not because I read an article about how I shouldn't have sugar, not because my mom thinks I shouldn't be eating so much sugar, my BFF or my spouse or my whatever, not because somebody outside of me says that, but because internally I feel like that could be really good for my health and wellness, or at least I want to experiment with it and see if I really feel better. Let's see how I feel, and take a really loving approach to not having any sugar for the next 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. I'm making this up completely. I am not going to go without sugar for the next few weeks. But I'm using it as an example, right? So that's how that loving inner authority would do it. And it would set up a support system, right? Like, okay, I know I'm going to have sugar cravings. So what am I going to do? I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm going to do something loving. When I feel that urge to have something sweet, I'm going to go do some other activity maybe that feels really good to me, because part of the reason I want that sweet is to have some kind of pleasure. So let me just replace it with a different kind of pleasure that isn't sugar. Like that's the way a loving, ideal parent would work with you to transform one habit into another, right? So that's how we unravel these things, okay? Then the next step is unlock. And that's really the beginning of the empowerment stage, right? Like you can see even from this silly example of sugar, that even as we unravel things, we're moving towards empowerment. We're moving, that loving inner authority is always moving us into empowerment. So this next step of unlocking becomes very sort of organic and natural in the process, okay? And it has all these positive, empowering language around it. Okay. So this is where we're asking, wow, what's really seeking to emerge in me? What would be open to me if I changed this habit? What would be available to me? Not, why can't I stop doing that? Right? Why can't I stop eating sugar is not an empowering question. It invites judgment. Okay. So as I'm working in this habit change of sugar, stopping sugar, even as I'm unlocking, my questions are empowering. My questions are, wow, what can I do with the money I'm going to save not buying sugar? I don't know. What can I do with the time I'm going to have? What can I do with the energy I'm going to have? What can I, it's questions that are empowering. That's part of that unlocking process. And then last but not least, again, it's just kind of a natural outflow of unlocking comes unleashing. And so unleashing is where you're really just out in the world as this new version of yourself. Okay. And you're owning it. And that's why this workshop that I'm offering is called Own Your Brilliance, because that's really, to me, just a beautiful way to express how we can own the truth of who we are, own our authenticity, be unapologetic about who we are. That's unleashing, right? So hence the name for the process being Freedom Unleashed, and the workshop being Own Your Brilliance, because that's what I'm here to do. That's my calling, is to help others, because I'm doing it for myself. You know, I've been doing it for many years for myself, and I continue to, because there's always something else to uncover, unravel, unlock, and unleash. But when you approach it from this sort of loving inner authority perspective, and there's not the browbeating, there's not the judgment, there's not the white knuckling, discipline, then you get to uncover, unlock, and unleash that part of yourself that really wants that change, right? Because we've unraveled what's been holding us where we are and what's really seeking to emerge. And so the unlocking and unleashing comes in a sort of organic way. It doesn't mean you don't still need practical tools to help you make those shifts in behavior. And I'll be teaching some of those, in the workshop when we do Own Your Brilliance. So I hope you'll check it out. I'll put the link to the registration page, which gives you all the details about it, in our show notes here. And, or feel free to go to my website or email me, brenda@brendaflorida.com, if you have any questions or want any information and are just struggling to find it. No need to struggle. So it's also going to be in our private Facebook group. So if you're not a member of that, join that and you'll get information there as well. So I hope that you will consider this process, consider this idea that to be inspired or to have awareness just isn't enough. We need these practical, sort of frameworks to lead us into a process that is sustainable for our own transformation, so we can really experience that liberation. And I will tell you, please do not feel like there's any sort of concept of not good enough, that you can't do this by yourself, that you're going to pay to go to a workshop, or you're going to pay to have one-on-one coaching or whatever, because everyone I know who is living a life in excellence in any part of their life, whether it's, fitness or in business or in more personal development things like this, or, a craft like painting or singing or anything, they are hiring coaches. They are paying for programs. They're getting help from someone who's done what they need to do, not so they can copy it exactly, right? Because all of our growth is very unique. Each of our lives are very unique. Each of us are a unique expression of the divine, but to help find a process by which to work, and then to be that mirror, because we all have blind spots. So I've hired lots of coaches over the years to help me with the things about this process that now I call Freedom Unleashed that I can't see in myself. Like, I may know I have the block, but I can't figure out how to unlock it, right? Or unravel it. I can't figure, that step out on my own in my own head. That's totally normal. We need somebody outside of us who doesn't have our biases, that doesn't have our own limiting beliefs, to say, oh, well, I can see that this is happening for you, or you're probably stuck here or there. And then it's like, oh, now I got it. And now let's work on how do I behave differently. So needing somebody, a podcast like this is awesome. And when you're working in a group like my program here, Own Your Brilliance, this workshop, or working one-on-one, that just allows you to go so much deeper than you can go by just listening to something and trying to implement it yourself. So I hope you'll consider joining me in Own Your Brilliance, and I'll see you in the next episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. All right. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. Hey, I've got 3 more things for you. One is join my private Facebook group, Liberate Your People Pleaser. We have lots of great conversations. I do Facebook Lives in there, drop in free resources, all kinds of cool things to support you in your journey to liberate your people pleaser. So the link for that is in the show notes. Second, I would love it if you would put a 5-star review on whatever podcast service that you found the podcast on. That would be totally awesome. And I'll give you a shout out on a future episode. And last but not least, if you've got a question you would like for me to answer or address, you'll also find a link in the show notes to do that. So submit your question and you'll hear me talk about it on a future episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. I'll see you in the next episode, everyone. Bye-bye.